Hey guys, this is Audrey from The Vile Gathering. In my video today, I will be explaining how to build your first commander deck. So I'll be walking you through how to maybe start off with a commander and then build up your deck with different cards. Um, as I mentioned in my recent video where I was talking about all the formats, commander is a 100 deck card. It's similar to Brawl, whereas there is a commander, which is a legendary creature that sits outside of your deck and that you can cast in any moment by paying the mana cost. In Commander, it is a format that allows you to actually go get cards of every collection throughout the whole entire history of Magic the Gathering. So it's really exciting because you can build off of any collection that you want and mix and match them and combine them into the same deck. But it can also be very overwhelming because if you're new to the format, it can get hard to see what you're going to put into your deck and whatsoever. So that's why I want to come here today and really break it down with you guys. So I want to give you guys a few tips on building your first commander deck in a way that makes it a little more fun to do and less scary, okay? So let's get into it. So when we start with our commander, you probably have a legendary creature in one of your packs that you know has an amazing ability or whatsoever, but you just don't know where to fit into a deck. So maybe there's a creature that showed up in a recent pre-release, or you bought some collector boosters or something like that, and you fell on this amazing legendary creature and you don't know what to do with it. So what I would do is like you don't have to start with your commander to actually make a commander deck, but I prefer it because when you start with a commander deck, it's a good way to actually define what your deck will do. Okay. Whereas if you're planning on making, I don't know, a blue and red deck, and then you bring in your commander at the end, it could be a little more confusing. So what I like to do personally is that I will choose my commander and I will build my deck around it afterwards. For example, right now, one of my favorite commanders that I'm playing with, I have a lot of commander decks that I've built, but one of my favorites at the moment is one from Wilds of Eldraine, which I pulled, and it is Ariette of the Charmed Apple. So as you can see, Ariette of the Charmed Apple is a colorless, a white, and a black. Okay. What I like about Ariette is that, first of all, she's a creature. She's a 2/4, so she can actually attack and defend. Each creature that's enchanted by an aura that I control can't attack me or any of my planewalkers that I control. And at the beginning of my end step, each opponent will lose X life, and I gain X life. And X is the number of auras that I control. So this particular commander has a mechanic which, like, I built around auras and enchantments. So I want to be enchanting my opponent's creatures and having them not be able to attack me or block me. And I want to be enchanting my creatures and boosting them up so I'm giving more damage and having more power and toughness on my end. So that is my mechanic. So my deck goes around that, enchantments and things like that. Okay. So to start off with a commander, it'll give you really the dynamic of what kind of deck that you want to build. Your commander will also limit what cards you're allowed to use. So I have a colorless, a white, and a black commander. I can't go put red into my deck. I need to respect that color of my commander. So no blue, no red, can't be putting no green in there either. So I really need to respect that. The color spells in a commander deck are limited to is color, the commander's color identity. So you can't go beyond that. Okay, so it's determined by the mana symbols, like I showed you guys before, up here. So if I had a red and green commander, I could be playing a red and green deck. If I had a blue and black and white, I could be playing blue, black, and white. You get the point. Let's see. Now, if we talk about color identity, okay, so there's a few things to keep in mind about color identity when you're building a commander deck. Um, just a sec. A lot of the ability costs count toward the color identities of all the cards, not just the commanders. So it's like you can't play a green card if you've got a white and black deck. Okay, so I think that that's a little clear. A card that has a hybrid cost counts as both colors. So let's say you have a card and in the circle, instead of being just a white circle, half is white, half is red. I wouldn't be able to play that even if I have white in my commander because I have no red. It would have to be like half white, half black, and then I could play either a white or a black land to cast it. So it's really important to respect that. Phyrexian mana counts as, how can I explain it? As the color in the background of the Phyrexian symbol. So uh, once again, if you have black and white, you can't play green, you can't play blue. You really need to respect that color. So you can only use lands in your deck. Sorry about that. You can only use lands that produce the colors of your commander's color identity, or that produce colorless mana or mana of any color. So if your commander was totally colorless, you wouldn't be able to use white or black lands in your deck. You would need to have lands that produce colorless mana. So the only basic lands that you could actually use in a colorless deck would be what we call wastes. But you can't use cards that are of a specific color. It really needs to be a special kind of land that will give you colorless. So either lands that are colorless or that give you a colorless mana. Now, when we're choosing cards, it's always a good idea to start building your deck with cards that you already own. That way it stops you from spending all the money that you worked so hard all week for to pimp up your decks. So if you have a lot of cards at home, try to see what you already have and try to build off of that. It'll reduce the cost of buying all the cards that you actually need. And if you do need specific cards afterwards, go ahead and buy them. It's fine, but you can always find a replacement while you're waiting. I'm talking by experience. When I was doing my Edgar Markov commander deck, I had a really good friend of mine build up my deck and give me a list of cards I needed. And I got really impatient because I was having to go order them online and buy them. And some of them were out of stock. And I was like, I really want to play my deck. So I cheated it out a little bit and added certain cards that were similar to what my friend had recommended, but not exactly. And I was able to play my deck, and I love it. I love my Edgar deck. What was I saying? Yeah, so start off with cards that you already have. It'll reduce the cost of actually buying all the cards that you need. Your deck should be about 1/3 land. Okay, at least a third of your deck should be lands. That way you're not worried about mana cost and you can play. You can add a little more if you're using 3 or more colors, because that gets a little tricky. Or a little less if you're like monocolor. So if you're doing just a mono blue, you might need a little less lands. But if you're doing 3 colors, I would have a little bit more than a third of the deck as colors. Let's say you were like in a single color red deck, like with goblins or things like that. Well, goblins will require, like, they rely on cheap creatures. Okay, so will cost 1, 2, 3 to take out. So you don't need massive land. If you're playing green and you've got all those big creatures, those stompers, sometimes they cost like up to 8, 9, 10, sometimes 11 to cast. You'll be needing a lot of mana, a lot of lands on your in your deck. um so as in most formats, a majority of your spells will be creatures because you want to cast a lot of damage, and it's, part of the game. Unless you're using a commander that has a mechanic that uh, will have you have a lot of non-creature spells, like there's Narset, Enlightened Master. You can check that out. And yeah, so he will actually have you get a lot of non-creature spells, but mostly the commanders will have creatures coming out. My Edgar will have 1/1 vampires coming out, even if he's still in the command zone. There's some like dragon decks that will have dragons coming out. Those some dinosaur decks will have eggs coming out that you can sacrifice. I'm talking a little bit of my decks right now. So it really depends on your commander and what kind of mechanic that you have. I would suggest you keep an eye out for abilities that interact well with your commander. So if like my commander goes around having enchantments, and the more enchantments I have on my battlefield and that I control, the more it's at my advantage because I'm having you lose life and I'm gaining life. So if I was to make a commander deck and put no enchantments in it, my commander's worth nothing. Its ability won't trigger. So it's not worth having it. So it's important to really respect that. I have another vampire deck, which my commander is Streffen. Streffen works a lot on blood tokens. You sacrifice blood tokens, you bring in some really good vampires without paying their mana cost. So if I had no creatures in my Streffen deck making blood tokens, I wouldn't be able to activate its ability as easily. So it's really to build around, keep an eye on the abilities of cards that will trigger your commander and make it even more beneficial for you. Let's see. So make sure you have about 10 to 15 cards worth of removal in your deck. Okay, so commander games can be really long. You want to be able to maybe wipe the board once in a while and get it going, or a lot of how can I say this? It should be built into your deck strategy. So if you've got removal, you've got to be able to come back on the other side and build quickly. So you need some little creatures that'll be able to build an army really quick also and come back to the charge, because you will be wiping the whole board. So it would be a really good idea. Building a commander deck doesn't have to be something you do once and then you're done with it. You can actually find maybe other cards and say, oh my gosh, this would be really good in my deck. And you can swap out cards, and you can always personalize it. You can always optimize your deck as much as you want. You'll be playing it. You can actually have two different commanders and okay, well, let's try this commander and see if I like the dynamic more than the other one. So it's really important to play around with the cards, play around with the different dynamics, the different abilities that different commanders and creatures can actually trigger in your deck. So the important thing that I want you to remember is have fun building your deck. Have fun. That is the biggest part. Have fun being a part of a family. I love sitting down with my husband and building decks together. Oh my gosh, this is a good card. Okay, this would be good in your deck. Oh, this would be good in your other deck. And we actually spend time together actually building our decks. And I find it really gets us closer. It gets us to interact with each other. And our oldest son comes up and he's like, oh my gosh, okay, so I built this deck. Okay, I can't wait to try it on you. And then he humiliates us because he's the master of deck building in our family. But it's really fun to play. So guys, I just want you guys to have a lot of fun doing it. Take your time, play around with the cards and see what you like. What kind of dynamic, what is your kind of deck? I like decks that are more black and red, more aggressive. That when I say aggressive, I mean fast to take out. Like I have an army full on my battlefield. All of a sudden, boom, that's it. We're attacking, and that's what I like. So it depends on what kind of deck you want to build, but It is really it is a real fun game to play, and it sounds scary when you look at it. Oh my gosh, 100 cards. It's not that bad. Take your time, start with Brawl like I was saying in the other video. If you're starting off, Brawl is a great format to start with. But when you're ready and you know how the game works, start with your commander. If you've got a legendary creature that you actually love and you don't know where to fit it in, make a commander deck. Look at what it does, look at what you need to amplify what it does, and have fun building, guys. So, talk to you soon. Hope this was useful. Don't be shy to write us if you have any questions, you need any tips. It will be a pleasure to help you guys build your deck. See you soon, guys. Have fun.